protest over alleged police harassment. 15 women, some with children, have locked themselves in Holy Cross Church at King's Cross and say they won't leave until they get guarantees about future police conduct. The church is in a notorious red light area. The women, mainly from the English collective of Prostitutes, want the police crackdown on prostitution eased. They claim women are being wrongly arrested, while others have been pressured into admitting soliciting charges.
We decided to occupy the church because the situation in King's Cross, with the amount of police persecution and harassment of prostitute women that's going on, has become so desperate that we wanted to take drastic action to bring it to public attention and to insist that something be done about it. And that's why we're calling for a representative from the Home Secretary's Department.
The vicar, the Reverend Trevor Richardson, says the women can stay if they don't interfere with services.
But the girls also have a point to make. I think probably they are harassed, and too much concentration in my mind is directed to the girls themselves and not to the evils of society which caused them to be here in the first place.
Scotland Yard say they've had no complaints from the women, but say the allegations will be investigated.
But first tonight, a bizarre protest in a London church in which masked prostitutes sat in the pews while the congregation celebrated Mass. Members of the English collective of prostitutes occupied the Church of the Holy Cross in the King's Cross red light district. They say they're tired of police harassment and they're seeking salvation from the authorities. This report from Steve Clark.
The women say they're occupying the church to bring attention to what they claim is the increasing level of police harassment of prostitutes in the area. Wearing masks to protect their identities, they went ahead with an early morning breakfast and announced their intention to stay put.
Well, a number of women came into the church after the evening service and explained to the vicar what the situation was and said that we were going to stay until we had seen the people that we were asking to see and until we had some guarantees that the situation would change.
Close to the church is Argyle Square, a favourite haunt of prostitutes. The police say they've not received any official complaint about harassment, but the vicar of Holy Cross, who lives in the square, says the girls have a right to make their protest.
But I think in the midst of all this that the girls also have a point to make. I think probably they are harassed, and too much concentration in my mind is directed to the girls themselves and not to the evils of society which caused them to be here in the first place.
Father Richardson says the women can stay at the church providing they don't disrupt services. At lunchtime he nervously put his stand to the test as he waited for parishioners to arrive for Mass.
I'm not in total control of the building.
Does this mean you're saying now that the women in fact are controlling the church?
I think we're controlling it jointly, by consent, mutual consent.
How long do you see that situation lasting yourself?
Until one of us gets tired of it.
All four of the lunchtime congregation were duly let in by the women, who then firmly locked the door on newsmen. Father Richardson later announced the group had been respectful throughout the service. So it looks tonight as if the English collective of prostitutes will continue their sit-in with the tolerance, if not the blessing, of church authorities. Steve Clark in King's Cross for Thames News.
An MP today called on the authorities to adopt an Al Capone solution to bring an end to the vice trade in King's Cross. Frank Dobson, the Labour MP for Holborn and St Pancras South, says the sex barons could be brought down through tax evasion charges as Al Capone was in America. Mr Dobson also attacked prostitutes who've taken over a local church and said the publicity will attract even more sex cranks to the area. The prostitutes and other women are into their 5th day of occupation over alleged police harassment. Mr Dobson now wants the Home Secretary to order an investigation into the local vice trade.
Taken over a church in the King's Cross red light district. The women have been inside the Church of the Holy Cross for nearly 3 days now in protest at alleged police harassment.
Women from the English collective of prostitutes who are staging the sit-in asked to go to tonight's meeting, but so far they haven't been invited. At a news conference held in the church today, they made it clear that a meeting with the local police commander, Frank Chambers, would have to be arranged before they'd consider leaving. They've also demanded a meeting with someone from the Home Office. Sitting with the women was the vicar of Holy Cross, Father Trevor Richardson. He said he'll make no attempt to have the women evicted forcibly, providing services can continue. But some parishioners are angry about his attitude.
Very bitter. Very bitter. Because as I say, it's not nice when you go into mass, you want to say your prayers quietly, and you've got prostitutes sitting at the back. I've got a personal friend, I mean, she's been, not only English, she's college educated, and she's bitter. She said, I'm getting a bit sick every Sunday morning of being told by Father Trevor about these kind of women.
Well, the impression given in certain sections of the press is that the parishioners are all against me. That, in fact, is an absolute misrepresentation.
There's undoubtedly some parishioners, though, that would have seemed to have liked you to take a firmer stand. What do you say to them?
Well, the only possible firmer stand to take would in fact be to ask the police to remove the women from the church. Frankly, I think that would have created a scene which would have been less in keeping with the teaching of Jesus Christ than what is happening now.
Inside the church, the prostitutes have asked for a special mass to be said for them on Sunday. So far, only the normal service is scheduled. The women have promised that they'll be there. This is Steve Clark in King's Cross.
By a group of women demanding rights for prostitutes. The protesters, who've donned black masks for fear of being recognised, claim that prostitutes working in the King's Cross area are constantly harassed and victimised by the police. The vicar, Father Trevor Richardson, has so far backed the protest, and so has the Women's Committee of Camden Council. But this sympathy isn't shared by the Holy Cross congregation, who on Sunday had to worship in makeshift surroundings. And as the 5-day protest has continued, further criticism has begun to develop over the fact that not all the women sitting in are in fact prostitutes. Some are long-time feminist campaigners and have been accused of doing the prostitutes of King's Cross more harm than good.
Now, Salma James, you are leading this protest, and you're
I'm
not well, you're one of the leaders, and you're very heavily involved. Now, you're not a prostitute. How do you know?
You make it sound like that's a crime.
I'm just stating the case.
Yeah.
How do you know, since you aren't a prostitute, what the prostitutes of King's Cross really want?
Because they say so all the time. They say so to everybody, and nobody listens, and that's why we took over the church. So now they are hearing, and now people who want to defend the police are attacking those of us who are not prostitutes and those of us who are, for putting the case before the public.
All right, now there have been some fairly upfront attacks on you, particularly today in some of the national newspapers.
Yeah,
and it's been pointed out that you're a long-time campaigner for women against rape, wages for housework, housewives in dialogue, black women for wages and so on.
Black women?
Fine.
Sounds ominous. Yeah.
Worthy causes as these I'm sure may be, isn't there a danger that your reputation as a professional adopter of causes might backfire on the girls you're trying to represent and make the public lose sympathy for the girls?
I don't earn my living as a backer of causes as you earn your living by questioning people who do have causes. I earn my living as a typist. And I would like to say that every woman should be interested in the cause of prostitutes in King's Cross, and every person who understands that the police are not doing what they're supposed to be doing and are doing what they're not supposed to be doing, are doing illegal things, should be very interested, very concerned with what we are doing. We're the front line, demanding that the police activity in King's Cross and elsewhere be looked into.
Some of the girls were quoted today as saying that your sit-in at the church had caused the police to crack down even harder. How do you reply to that?
I think that that's partly true. I think that many girls are not being arrested, and I think that some girls are being arrested more, especially those, whom the police can get at. They're very angry when women stand up for their rights, and they're doing more illegal work in some areas now than they were before.
Well,
are you sorry?
Is the sit-in a good thing? If the police, it's causing the police to crack down harder.
No, the police are doing some more illegal work in some areas and some less illegal work in others. Women walked out of the church today and were threatened with arrest, but they were not arrested because we were with them, those of us who have been publicly identified. There is no way it is a bad thing to point to police illegality if you have a case, and we have one. You cannot say that that's unjust.
Salma James, there's one final point I'd like to put to you. The idea of campaigning for prostitutes' rights is not a new one.
Right.
In this country, a body called the Josephine Butler Society was founded in 1870 to protect prostitutes' civil rights, and today they told us that they could not support your sit-in.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that the oldest body in the country to help prostitutes is not supporting you?
Because they're not interested in prostitutes. They're careerists who are making their living by saying they're interested and concerned and looking around and doing nothing. Women have come to them for help and they've refused.
Salma, thank you very much. I'm sorry to cut you off. We're running out of time.